our ratio to males to females is much higher on the males. Okay, so something that we could improve is that we get more females involved in the conversation. Okay, and somebody, the person who's doing tally marks just for the males, what types of things are males doing?
They're making a lot of statements.
Okay, so they're making lots of statements. Those that are making tally marks for the females, what type of things are females doing?
Exactly.
About the same. Well, they're about the same for asking questions, reading the text, and making statements.
Okay, so about equal between those three. Okay, we have low numbers, so it's kind of tough to do this. Who's got our view of what the discussion looks like? Show it for us so we can see it. Okay, so right now we can see that it's concentrated on one side. Okay, show it so they can see it. Thank you. Okay, so you'll continue that. What are some of the questions that have been asked? Whoever's keeping track of the questions asked.
Well, I'm just keeping track of Alyssa, and the only question she asked was, what should the governor's rule be about tap water?
Okay. Who's got just the questions?
The governors.
Who's got just the questions? Somebody's got one that's just write down every question that's asked. Is that you, Corey? All right. Well, someone's not doing that. So, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to give you a chance for a discussion point. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn around and talk to the people in the outer circle, and they're going to give you some tips on things that you could discuss. Again, we're trying to make some sort of thing.
I wasn't done.
I was. Talk about the words.
Would it be weird? I don't know what you No, shut up.
Okay, so people on the outside, you're giving some tips and some ideas of things that people could bring up and that they could discuss. Again, we're looking for viewpoints.
Hair flip.
Participate.
That's all I got so far.
That's all I do, like liver and kidney. One of them was like, what if somebody knows about to get cancer?
I wish, dude.
Okay, let's wrap up in 10 seconds.
Mormon machine.
Not that 6, 5, 4,
4, 3, 2, 1. There we go.
Okay, everybody back to the center. Okay, you hopefully have a lot more things that we can potentially discuss. Remember, we have our hot seat. Anybody on the outside, you're welcome to use this. Nobody's used it yet. Right, Graydon? Nobody's been to our hot seat yet. Graydon's got a place where he's going to mark down whoever visits the hot seat and talks. Okay, so that's open and available. Okay, so our inner circle, folks, what were some things that you thought would be worthwhile to discuss about this article?
Why did they build the chemical plant so close to water?
easy access.
What do you mean?
Easier to kill the people.
What do you mean by easy access?
To get the water.
Okay, so maybe they need water.
But you could get city water basically almost anywhere in the town.
I think the problem, I think the reason they probably built it so close is, I mean, depending how large of a manufacturing plant it is, you're going to need a lot more water than like a municipal water supply can really supply, I guess.
A lot of manufacturing places are built near water. In fact, our nuclear power plants, because they require so much cooling, you put them, they have to be on water. You can't build them places where there's not easy access to water. Okay, so what potential problems does that present to us?
Well, the chemical getting into the water.
Think of Japan, right? Fukushima.
Getting too much water into the plant, into the area, and it overflowing or causing problems.
Okay.
Doing tissue.
Can I go get tsunamis?
Yeah.
Okay. So what might be some other reasons it's close to the water, or what might be some other reasons that we could, other problems that may cause?
People don't want to have to travel back and forth just for water, they just want to have to be able to get it right then and there.
Okay.
Electricity.
Okay. Why would electricity be near water? Why might electricity be near water? Okay, if we use hydroelectricity,
Yes, hydroelectric.
which happens to be where our current electricity is coming from, most likely.
And they use a lot of it. They probably do use a lot of it.
Alyssa. Put it away. No, put it back in the bag. Okay? Anything else? Any other questions that you guys came up with, things that you want to discuss?
So if the plant is so close to a water supply, couldn't the 45 gallons of rainwater have some of the MCHM in it anyways because of the water and chemical evaporating and then raining back? Water cycle.
Okay. What do you know? What do you know? What do you think?
I suppose, that's definitely possible.
But highly.
45 gallons in like a couple days is insane. Oh my
This
god.
is what happens when you live in West Virginia.
Wait, so if it was, the 45 gallons was, gotten within the days that the MCHM had been contaminating the water, wouldn't it most likely have higher?
So typically when water evaporates, it doesn't take any contaminants with
Yeah, I
it.
didn't know.
But if the contaminant was able to get aerosol or into the atmosphere, water droplets require something to form, condense on, and that's usually a dust particle or something. So it is possible that it would depend on that particular particle. And 45 gallons is not that much. I have rain gutters at my house, and even one of our small storms fills my 50 gallons in one storm. And 45 gallons is not a ton.
You'd also, you'd probably have to look at where that actual storm system came from, don't you guys think? I find it probably pretty unlikely that the rain just went straight up and then came straight back down without any sort of movement across the sky. So.
Okay. Morgan, you before acted like you had something to say. What was it?
It was just about how they said first there was no serious hospitalizations, but yet the people are still scared to drink the water, but nobody's been in the hospital or died from the water or anything like that, but it's a serious chemical. That's
Okay. Thank you for referring to the text. What do you guys think of what she said? Is it something they should be concerned about? There hasn't been any hospitalizations.
Well, it might be because, no hospitalizations, because
no serious
people haven't.
No serious hospitalizations. I mean, people still.
And it could affect them over time,
Yeah.
because it's not in large enough quantities yet. But
Okay. Anything else, sir?
They could have just seen the color of the water, and then they were like, no, not drinking it, and then they went to the grocery store and bought bottled water rather than using the tap water.
Yeah, it mentions quite a few times through the article how they were just bringing in bottled water to supply to everyone in the city, by the pallet. So, I think that's one thing that the city was doing right, is making sure they provide, an alternative source to the contaminated water. But one thing it does talk about in terms of the health effects is they don't really know what kind of effect it has on, I think it specifically mentions the liver and the kidneys.
It could cause liver or kidney damage.
Bottom of the page.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, it might not even happen right away. That's going to be one of those things that, it could take years to even develop. So.
Like with some metabolism too, because you wouldn't really notice until a certain period of time.
it's like nobody knows that because the company's not releasing any information to the public. of the effects.
What are some of the reasons that people say they're not going to drink water? There's lots of reasons that they give.
Because they don't want cancer.
Okay, they don't want cancer. Hot seat. You have a comment in the outer circle? Please come to the hot seat.
It was in the overlooked comment.
Okay. Anything else? Taste, they're not sure.
Color,
Color,
the smell.
smell,
Smells like licorice.
smells like licorice.
Does the water smell like licorice?
Yes.
So the
Chemical.
chemical smells like licorice.
Well,
The chemicals in the water.
That would be so gross, I couldn't do that. Sorry.
Go ahead.
There's that one guy who said he was gonna make his neighbor shower first to see if his hair fell out.
Okay.
So if the water's so dangerous, why are they still taking a shower with it? Like, if they have to
They
get
said they were
water.
doing sponge baths.
No,
Well, it says they're showering too, but I'm sure taking a sponge bath every day for the rest of your life would suck. So,
I would just
yeah, but then
cancer
on the
sponge
back
bath.
page,
Mr. Jenks,
Yes.
can I offer a comment?
Sure, awesome.
Could the soap from showers kill the chemical? Like dilute the chemical enough to where it's safe?
I think it's still gonna touch you though.
But
And
the
your skin is gonna
soap
soak it up.
could like dilute it enough to where it won't affect your skin or anything like that.
yeah, but then the people would have to use the same exact soap that has the same ingredients as that one person did.
Guys, let's just talk about how they ran out of TV dinners.
yeah.
The most important part.
On the second page where it talks, State Senator John Unger, his comment is, what we don't know are the long-term effects of this chemical. Have they done any research? No one knows. This is the problem. In the next paragraph is the comment that concerns me and scares me a little bit. Eastman Chemical Company declined to make their studies of the chemical's effects public. To me, if you're declining to let the public know what your chemical, how it's going to affect them, that says a lot to me.
Yeah, it says this article specifically said that Eastern Chemical, called the study, proprietary. They're calling it, it's their property, so they shouldn't
They don't
have to
have
release
to let
it.
us.
And that really seems at that point they're putting, their corporate interests ahead of human health.
And it kind of tells me that they know what the effects are, and they don't want the public knowing.
Why? Because they fix it back.
Why would they do
And
that?
they get sued.
Money.
Boom.
Money, money.
Does it actually say how this actually happened anywhere?
Or the tsunami that we talked about in West Virginia.
Yeah, that's possible.
If I remember, it was a tanker that spilled, but I'm not 100%.
So it's not actually the factory that,
leaked. I think it was some other storage container, if I remember right.
Washing coal.
So meaning washing coal, we can get some of the extra harmful things out of coal and some of the impurities as well.
So-
It's a process called washing.
So is it like an energy factory, like a coal factory?
So West Virginia uses a lot of coal. West Virginia and Wyoming are the states that produce the most coal in the country, and so it's likely used in the extraction and pre-delivery process to get it ready to be used.
So,
That sucks for a lot of reasons.
have they, is it all better now? Is the water still contaminated, like
They
today?
don't know, they don't know.
Because it says like in like the first line of the whole thing, the water was back on, but the anxiety had not shut off. Like, why would they turn the
I
water back
think
on?
they want people to think that it's okay so that it won't go into further investigation, but, because nobody
It's
knows.
still, nobody will know if it's better.
Yeah, but if one day somebody starts getting liver cancer and then it goes to another person, they're gonna start thinking it's the water again. Because they said it was okay, but then it really
I know,
wasn't.
I mean, if my water's still colored weird, it smells weird, I'm gonna know it's the water. Even if they turn it back on.
In the shower and it smells
But
like shower.
if you run it
Just
enough,
speak, you want me to read it?
like the water could sooner or later dilute, like it'll get all the chemicals out of the water after so long, because it's already into the pipes, so it's gonna take time to get the chemical out of the pipes.
So you wouldn't have to like specially
So
like,
just
you know,
turn on the shower.
Cleaning them, you'd have to dig up all the streets and basically replace all the pipes.
but over time, you're saying that the chemical will,
It
It's gonna
should.
affect everyone, but in the long run, the water's gonna be clean in another couple of years.
So everybody just turn on their showers for a long time.
But don't get in it.
Yeah.
No.
So here's a question that relates globally to our topic, our project on water. The question is when is water clean enough? When is it clean enough?
It's in a bottle.
But
Yeah, it's
our water
filtrate.
is filtered out of the tap. If you buy bottled water here, it's most likely out of the tap from up the road in Moreland.
I find glaciers.
I buy it from Fiji.
They melt glaciers.
And yes, they know they
The
do.
ones on the cost.
Okay.
Smart water takes their water from clouds.
Yeah, so all water comes from clouds.
It says so on the bottle. Have you read it?
Okay. So when is our water clean enough?
The pH, like a certain number of pH.
Okay, so we have parameters like pH. What are some other parameters?
I would say it's clean enough when it's not causing any, when it's not the direct cause of any like adverse effects.
How will you know when it's not the cause of adverse
And you're
effects?
like 80.
So have we looked at, in our project, we talked about EPA recommended levels, right? EPA levels are our recommendations. A story that applies to our area a couple years ago. So there was a particular EPA set level of a particular amount of a chemical or a mineral thing in the water. And what happened was the EPA then cut that requirement in half. Okay, and our water here did not change at all. It still had the same level, but now we were no longer in compliance with EPA's guidelines because they had changed those guidelines. Now that guideline had been at a certain point for decades, and we've been in compliance. All of a sudden they've changed the EPA level, and now we're out of compliance. So when is water clean enough? People had drunk that for decades before, and it had been clean enough. Now we've changed that level, and all of a sudden it's not clean enough. So how do we decide when water is clean enough to drink?
When you boil it, you just have to filtrate, like filter it. Like,
So you filter and boil all of your water?
no.
could we ever know?
Could we?
Different people have different standards.
Okay. So who's
We all have
responsible
the
for
same
making sure?
standards. None of us want to get sick.
Well, yeah, but
Or
like,
cancer or die or
I
die.
think there's people
but
that
different
are
people will
drinking
do drinks like.
disgusting water. You would be fine with drinking something that's just below EPA standards.
What if your water's just above EPA standards?
What if it
Good
was
for you,
above?
that means.
Well, if it's
Like-
above,
is that
then
good
it
worse?
should just be.
Are you talking about worse?
I think that's fine, well, above or kind of relative, I think they're both saying the same.
Yeah.
So if it's higher than what they recommend, if we've got more parts per million or parts per billion of whatever it is in our water than the EPA has said is good drinking water,
Well,
So that means
then
it's bad
obviously
drinking
we're
water to
gonna.
them. That was,
Yeah,
okay.
okay, yes,
Well,
so
then-
we sue you.
That,
Because
that's,
I want good water.
who are you gonna sue?
Whoever
Are you gonna
is
sue the
on
water company or
compliance
the
thing.
EPA or the?
Right.
Well, no, the EPA already came up with their standards, and then it's our
well,
government
they changed
or whatever that
their
said that-
standards after ours were set. And they've been there forever, and then they changed them.
Well, that means you change yours too.
Well, I'm sure it's hard to get the water cleaner after you've been doing the same thing forever.
So you guys had an experience with cleaning water, right?
I would not drink that water.
How well did that go? It can
Well,
be
if you've
difficult
been
to
doing
clean
it a couple
water.
times, so your water kept getting cleaner.
It
so
still
maybe
smelled
they just
horrible.
need to-
It still smelled horrible.
Oh, no, it's disgusting.
If they were like, hey, we want this to smell like this forever, and then they were like suddenly like, hey, take this out of there, figure out how, and you're just like, well, I have no idea what to do because we've done
Well,
the
but
same
they
thing.
have like 1,000 scientists, I'm pretty sure they can figure something
Thermopolis,
out.
Wyoming has 1,000 scientists. Out of 3,000 people, we have 1,000 scientists in there being like, listen,
3,009.
Exactly, I mean, I was 3,000.
So you gotta be in the hot seat.
I don't care. Those 9 people would make a big difference.
So I think you hit a valid point though, right? If we are a small